Zumbi dos Palmares. Who? Let's give you a little more information on Zumbi dos Palmares. So, at the age of 6, Zumbi was kidnapped from Dos Palmares by the Portuguese and given to priest Antonio Melo as a slave. Priest Melo began to indoctrinate Zumbi within the ways of Catholicism by baptizing him and changing his name to Francisco, teaching him the sacraments, teaching him Latin as well as Portuguese, and making him participate in mass. And that was an important tool because he knew Latin, they couldn't like run a lot of tricks on him. Zumbi was an intelligent and educated young man, as well as a sophisticated fighter and a great strategist and a great leader. So yeah, but let me not spoil stuff. So Priest Mello began to indoctrinate Zumbi within the ways of Catholicism by baptizing him and changing his name to Francisco, teaching him the sacraments, teaching him Latin as well as Portuguese, and making him participate in mass. At the age of 15, Zumbi escaped slavery and returned to Dos Palmares to be with his people. He learned and eventually mastered the martial art of capoeira, an African martial art that combines elements of dance, acrobatics, and music. Capoeira has its roots in Angola and was brought to Brazil during the transatlantic slave trade. By the age of 20, Zumbi was known as an accepted military strategist and leader. The Dos Palmares region was invaded by the Dutch in 1644, and by 1654, the Portuguese had expelled the Dutch and occupied the region. Both the Dutch and the Portuguese repeatedly attempted to invade the living quarters of the people of Dos Palmares, but were met with immediate force and defeated. The Maroons used the art of capoeira and their advantage to help defend their people and their lands. In 1678, Pedro Almeida, the governor of the captaincy of Pernambuco, arranged a meeting between himself and Ganga Zumba. The meeting was held so Almeida could offer Ganga freedom for the people of Dos Palmares if they would submit to the Portuguese. Ganga was in favor of the deal, but Zumbi was not. Zumbi felt that if all Africans enslaved by the Portuguese were not set free, the deal would not be suitable. Zumbi did not trust the Portuguese. Zumbi and Ganga clashed because Zumbi believed his people should continue to fight against Portuguese oppression and not try to find a comfortable place within white oppression. Of course, this is my book, so that's my writing. So some sources state that Zumbi killed Ganga in the fight before he took control of the military in the Quilombo Dos Palmares settlement. We do not know for certain if Zumbi killed Ganga, but we do know that Zumbi eventually assumed leadership. For the first 15 years of his reign, Zumbi was able to keep his people free from Portuguese colonization. In 1694, the Portuguese launched an all-out attack on regions of Dos Palmares settlement led by Domingos Jorge Vejo and Bernardo Vieiro de Melo. The Portuguese forces were joined by Brazilian Indians who helped attack the settlement. The battle lasted for 42 days, and eventually the Maroon settlement of Cerca do Macaco was destroyed. Zumbi was able to escape after this defeat, but was eventually captured in February of 1695. It is believed that he was betrayed by a fellow Maroon who secretly worked for the Portuguese. And yes, so in the movie that it was the gentleman with the cross. It was the black guy with the cross on his neck. At the beginning of the movie, when they defeated the Portuguese, when they ambushed the Portuguese and defeated them, he took the cross off one of the guy's necks and put it on his neck. So that guy also became very friendly with the Portuguese. It was a translator. It was a two-way spot. And eventually he wasn't the one that got that was the reason that Zumbi was killed. But the guy with the cross on his neck was the reason why Palmares was invaded for the final time. Now, it was in the movie, it depicted that it was a small child, and the small child would eventually succeed Zumbi. There was a small child and another guy, and the other guy that was with Zumbi, he was the one that eventually betrayed Zumbi. He said they got him and tortured him and brought him back. So he brought them back to Dos Palmares, and they captured Zumbi and deleted him. So he was in his head placed on display to deter any future uprisings. And that they're talking about what happened to Zumbi. Zumbi is remembered by the Afro-Brazilian people as a hero, and every November 20th, he is celebrated on what is called the Day of Afro-Brazilian Consciousness, celebrated since the 1960s. This This day's festivities consist of mass marches to protest the injustice against Afro-Brazilian people, and it also celebrates African heroes, culture, and consciousness. Zumbi is a beloved hero because of his refusal to give in to Portuguese oppression. For 15 years, he was able to keep his people free of invading Portuguese forces. He is the husband of the legendary heroine Dandara dos Palmares, who fought with her husband against the Portuguese. In 2011, the National Day of Zumbi and Black Consciousness was made an official holiday recognized by the Brazilian government. It is labeled as law number 12,519. To the last leader of the Quilombo dos Palmares, Zumbi dos Palmares, we proudly stand on your shoulders.